Thursday, June the 21st, 2018 is going to be remembered as quite a significant day in the police investigation into the death in 1994 of Rikki Neave. I first got involved in this case 4.5 years ago on a January evening, when I received a call after doing a piece for Anglia Television about an aborted hunt for a murderer from Wisbech, and received a telephone call from Gary Rogers, who is married now to Ruth Neave, saying basically, I've got one, meaning another case that I ought to have a look at. I arranged to meet him, and I then met Ruth, who'd basically had enough of the media by then over the years, but won a trust sufficiently enough to be engaged in the what was then, a cold case story about the death of her son Rikki. So began basically the last 4.5 years trying to help the family, help the police with that investigation by regularly writing about it and working with Gary, who'd had access to a lot of the original court material, to try and persuade the police to reopen this murder inquiry. They'd reviewed it, what I'd call a light touch review over the years, but there'd never been a substantive reinvestigation of the murder of Rikki. That changed a couple of years ago when the police did announce a cold case review. They called it a new investigation. A team of 30 detectives were put on it, and Paul Forward was announced himself as heading up that inquiry. Subsequent to that, they were able to make an arrest. Subsequent to that, they were not able to charge anybody following the intervention and the requirements of the CPS. So we've been waiting now for some considerable time for the outcome of that CPS examination and verification of the new evidence, the re-evaluation of the old evidence, what DNA testing had been done, and all the paraphernalia surrounding trying to work out what happened on that fateful day in 1994 when Rikki left for school, never came home, and his naked body was found the following day. The police have decided today that they have had to call it a day, basically, for now. They haven't used the word closure. They've basically referred to the fact that it will always remain open. They're looking for new intelligence. They're looking for new evidence. But I know from today that they won't actively be looking for that. It will be almost a passive hunt. In other words, if something turns up, somebody comes forward, or somebody decides to confess to what happened that day, they may well be able to pursue the case further. In the course of the normal procedures, of course, what happens now is that it will be re-evaluated under the new laws. All cold cases are reviewed every 2 years, so fresh pairs of eyes will look at it in 2 years' time. For now, though, as the police have announced today, they can go no further.
They've tried the best, and it's never going to be closed, which I'm thankful for. And this is just the end of a chapter and beginning of a new chapter. This is not the end at all. I'm going to carry on until I get justice for Rikki.
They were the words that the police used, and I was with you, as you recall, this morning, when you were looking for some form of apology, and they have apologised to you for not finding Rikki's murderer and for not bringing Rikki's killer to justice, haven't they?
Yes, Paul Forward apologised to me because I said to him I need an apology, and he says I apologise for not finding Rikki's murderer, and I'm really sorry about that, and he sounded very genuine about it.
He batted away a question from me that I asked him about the financial cost of the investigation, and he was almost dismissive of the fact that it probably cost £1 million. Money didn't come into this, did it?
No, it didn't. Money was no object. They wanted to find Rikki's killer, and they tried so hard that it just hasn't, not yet. I'm just waiting for somebody to come forward, more people to come forward.
But they threw everything at this investigation.
Yes, they did.
Do you think that the mistakes that were made during the original investigation were perhaps not enough evidence was preserved has now come home to roost in as much as that had they had more, because DNA played a part in this inquiry, didn't it?
Definitely, yes, it did. And I think that 24 years ago, they made a right mess up of the case, and if they'd have done their job properly, we wouldn't be here today, because hopefully Rikki's killer would be in jail and that would have been it. But no, they just...
Do you think it was because they thought they'd got the killer in you?
Yeah,
Basically. Well, you were charged with the murder.
Yeah, I know.
And therefore, all other bets were off.
All the bets were off, and let's charge her, and that's it.
But all these years later, Paul Forward, when he carried out the investigation, made it clear from the outset
that I was never the suspect.
You were a victim.
A victim, yeah. So, yeah, and I was actually, like he said today, he's treated me like, as a parent, Rikki's mum, which I haven't had done to me for a very long time.
Yeah. Lots of people will be watching what you say and what you do, but as we discussed this morning, you know, the effects of the trial of you and your being found guilty of child neglect and cruelty and all the rest of it, basically destroyed your family.
Yep.
Completely, didn't it?
Give my family a right legacy of neglect and cruelty and murder of my son. That's a nice way of giving your kids a legacy, innit? And that ain't through me, that's through other people.
Do you deserve what happened to you?
No, I don't. I don't think anybody. I don't think anybody deserves that to happen to them. Do you?
When you were in prison, what was going through your mind?
Just get my head down and get on with it.
But you, at the time, didn't see a day coming when you could fight for the truth.
No, I didn't fight until I come out of prison in 2000. And I started asking for files and letters and stuff like that, and all I kept getting back from our solicitor was, no, you're not having anything, no, you're not having anything at all. But I did try, because I was going to try and undo the adoption, but the person who's got the child proceedings wouldn't allow me to have the files. And then all the letters and cards that I sent the kids mysteriously disappeared.
So did your children grow up believing that
I'd abandoned them?
You abandoned them?
They think I abandoned them, which is far from the truth. I have not abandoned them at all.
Not far from where we're doing this film today, Ruth, your children, your kids as you call them, are being given the similar sort of briefing to what you had this morning. For the record, they were told the outcome of this investigation at exactly the same time.
Yeah.
But they're now getting access to the same team that did the investigation as you had this morning. You're finding it really difficult, or are they finding it really difficult to actually meet them? Because you haven't met them in...
I haven't met them for 24 years. Not since Sheridan was 6 months old, Rochelle 3 years, Rebecca 7 or 8 years old. Haven't seen any of them.
Okay, you've got one shot publicly of saying what you would like now to happen, because in a sense this investigation of their brother's murder, your son's murder, has re-established some sort of contact with them, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Through social media and so on. What would your wish be for your 3 remaining children and their mum?
I'd like them to stop blaming me for everything and stop blaming me for their brother's murder. That's what I want to stop. I want them to stop it. And if we're going to get anywhere, they need to sit down and talk to me about it. Just talk to me about it, and just listen to the police and take note of what they're saying to them, and hopefully they might get an inkling of what has been going on, because all it has been is fight, fight, fight. And that's all it has been, and it probably always will be fight, fight, fight.
But you want some, you would not be adverse to some form of reconnection, reconciliation?
Yeah, I'd give it a go, yeah.
So far as the case is concerned then, closure wasn't really a word that they wanted to use this morning, but certainly a postponement of proactive work by the police. But what would you want still to happen? I mean, there are people in Peterborough who clearly know more than what they've told the police.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'd really, really want them to come forward and tell the police what they know, because there's people, like you said, in Peterborough that know a lot more, and they haven't come forward. I'm begging them to come forward so we can get this person for Rikki's murder, and put us all at peace.
What's your concluding thoughts about today? You weren't unsurprised by it, but
I was upset about it, you know. I didn't show it much, but I just know that they chucked everything at it, and they've done what they could, but this isn't the end. There's an appeal that I want to do, appeal against what the CPS are saying, so I'm going to do that, and then we'll see where we get to from there.
And you were quite complimentary in your meeting with the police about
Yeah.
what this team, and he emphasised that it was a non-Cambridgeshire team that had been
Yeah,
assembled. Although it was a regional crime squad, he was quite at pains to emphasise that all the people that he brought together to look at this weren't, if you like, tainted by any connection with the original case.
No, because a couple of years before we met you, there was 2 coppers that come in my house, and they basically said, you know, we know you've done it, and you just shut up about it and just leave it alone. And then they called the PC McNeil a liar and said, oh, it never bowed down well then, it don't bow down well now, that he lied.
Remind people who PC McNeil was.
PC McNeil was the one who looked at the back of where Rikki was found, and basically they said that he lied, saying that Rikki was there, but he wasn't.
Yeah. So he examined it early on, and then he wasn't there, and then he...
And then 12 o'clock the next day, it was.
Yeah.
So they thought he was a liar.
Yeah.
And why call your own a liar? He said his bit. He told the truth. It's just that Cambs cops just don't like it. Just don't like me and don't like the case.
So no cause for much really today. It just goes on for you.
Yeah, it does go on. I'll live and breathe it until it gets sorted.